So, you want to start watching wrestling, but it's kind of intimidating, right? There's a bunch of companies, there's hours of television shows, hundreds of wrestlers, and thousands of social media accounts, all competing for your attention. Well, I'm going to explain it all to you and give you a plan for how to start watching. There's three main brands in the United States: WWE, AEW, and TNA. They break down sort of like this. WWE, it's the biggest and most well known. They focus primarily on a story driven show with excellent production values, elaborate stories, and they have constant, easy to follow jumping on points. And they really focus on fan outreach. They've been around, well, forever, so there's decades worth of stories and matches to catch up on. AEW is the second biggest promotion. They're a more sports like product. They're focused on high quality, fast paced matches. They're comparatively light on story, but they do have them. They put on a big show, but rarely do they achieve the sheen of a WWE show. They're generally considered to be geared towards more hardcore fans, but they have only existed for about 5 years, so they have far less history for you to catch up on if you want to know the full story. TNA, meanwhile, they're sort of like the scrappy upstart. Even though they've been around for 20 years, TNA aspires to be like the WWE, but limited resources mean they tend to fall short on the production side, and their best talent has a habit of migrating to the other two companies when they start to really heat up. But it is a great place to get a look at the future of the industry. They tend to have the most even focus, having both a sports feel and a story drive. Okay, now, how do you watch them? The WWE has three primary shows: Raw, which is currently on USA, but moving to Netflix in 2025. SmackDown, which is on Fox, but moves to USA in 2025. And NXT on USA, but that's moving to the CW in 2025. Look, each show has its own roster and its own stories, although they do cross over frequently. Think like Buffy and Angel or the Law and Order franchises. AEW, meanwhile, has three shows: DYNAMITE on TBS, Rampage and Collision both on TNT. TNA has one primary show called Impact, which airs on Access, or on their own app. All three have premium events. These are monthly events where the ongoing storylines have climaxes, sort of like mini-season finales. WWE uses Peacock for their premium live events. For the $60 annual subscription to Peacock, you get them all. So WWE has an incentive to make each of them must-watch. AEW's premium events are pay-per-views. They're available from your cable service, on Bleacher Report, and a few other places. They tend to be excellent content-wise, but they cost $50 a piece. AEW knows that a good amount of the audience isn't watching them, and therefore you can skip them, and the weekly shows will keep you caught up. Although, you may regret it, as every one is truly fantastic. There's 9 of them this year, so that's $450 to see them all. TNA, meanwhile, has a combination of pay-per-views and premium live events that are included with their streaming app. So, at $10 a month, plus a few extra, they're kind of a middle ground between both companies. Alright, now, all three companies have both men's and women's divisions. All three companies aren't really geared for kids anymore, but WWE is by far the most kid-friendly of the three. Both AEW and TNA are targeted at adults with copious swearing and adult-themed storylines. Alright, let's talk about the time commitment. There's 7 weekly hours of WWE programming, but you in theory could break that up into either 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of NXT, or 2 hours of SmackDown. There's 5 hours of AEW programming, but DYNAMITE on Wednesday nights is their big plot show, so if you just want to follow the stories, you can get away with just those 2 hours. TNA, meanwhile, has a lean 2 hours of programming total. The rosters of each company do contain some familiar names. WWE is the home of stars like The Rock and John Cena, who aren't regulars but do periodically show up for short stints. Some of their biggest stars are Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Becky Lynch, and Randy Orton. Even internet superstar Logan Paul shows up, and shockingly is a great wrestler. AEW, meanwhile, is a mixture of former WWE stars like Chris Jericho, Adam Copeland, who you might know as Edge and from the Percy Jackson TV show, and Mercedes Moné, and younger superstars like MJF, Will Ospreay, Toni Storm, and Swerve Strickland. TNA is predominantly made up of younger talent, with some of their biggest stars also being former WWE stars, like Nick Nemeth, who used to be Dolph Ziggler, and the Hardy Boys. They have superb grapplers like Moose and Jordan Grace making up the rest of their roster. Now, you might start to notice a pattern of former WWE superstars going to the other companies. The big question, which one is better? Well, they're all just really different from each other. I enjoy something different about each one. I'm completely addicted to the stories of the WWE and can't wait for the next chapter of the emotional, deep stories that they tell. But the adrenaline-pumping, heart-stopping action you get from an episode of AEW TV is pretty hard to beat. And you're always guaranteed to see something you've never seen before every time you watch. TNA, meanwhile, it feels more experimental and can be fresher because of it. So, now, how would you start? Well, if I had to choose for you, I would take 1 week and I'd watch an episode of each show. And I do mean a week because there's a show every single night. So, try Monday Night Raw, NXT on Tuesday, Wednesday Dynamite, TNA on Thursday, SmackDown on Friday, and Collision on Saturday. One of 3 things is going to happen. You'll find one of the brands that just reverberates with you, or you'll find one of the shows that hits you, or you'll realize that they all do. And then you start down a path that you absolutely will not regret. I make videos like this one, and about the crossover between the creative process and professional wrestling. So follow me for more videos like this.